Sometimes, when I catch my reflection in the mirror, I feel an almost electric jolt of surprise. It's not vanity exactly, more like a momentary shock of recognition and disbelief. Who is this person looking back at me with the soft folds around the eyes and the gentle furrows carved across the forehead? Where did the smooth skin go, the sparkle of youth that once glowed without effort? The mirror, that merciless truth-teller, never lies. And yet my mind, my memories, my inner rhythm still insist that I am 25. I often find myself standing there, tilting my head slightly, as if adjusting the angle might alter what I see. But no, there they are, those wrinkles that trace the stories of laughter, sorrow, and time. They form like rivers on an old map, branching and crossing, each one earned, each one speaking of a moment lived. There's a tenderness in that realization, even as I feel the pang of loss. I am no longer the young man with the wavy blonde hair that made people smile, or so I like to think. I still keep a photograph from those days, one where my hair curls with such bounce and mischief that it looks almost alive. Back then my hair would catch the sun and ripple like golden water. I used to joke that the waves could make the girls seasick just watching them move. Now, of course, there's not much left of it, just a few brave strands holding on like old friends who refuse to leave. I can't quite say when it happened, this quiet surrender of youth to time. It didn't announce itself with fanfare. It crept in softly, like twilight easing over the horizon, until one day I simply noticed that the light had changed. Still, that moment of recognition in the mirror isn't always sad. There's something oddly comforting about it too. The man I see now carries a story that the younger version never could. My face, my hands, my posture, all of them bear witness to the life I've lived. They've weathered storms, celebrated joys, built friendships, lost loves, and found new meaning again and again. Time has not taken away who I am. It has deepened me, seasoned me. I sometimes imagine talking to that younger version of myself, the one in the photograph. He'd probably be impatient with me, impatient with my slower step, my tendency to nap after lunch, my habit of misplacing my glasses. He'd want to rush off somewhere, chasing adventure or ambition. I'd tell him, "Slow down, boy. The world will wait. There's more to see when you stop running." He wouldn't understand yet. But one day, standing before his own mirror, he would. People often talk about aging as though it were an enemy, something to resist, disguise, or defeat. I don't see it that way anymore. Age isn't a thief. It's an artist. It paints new colors on us, gives our faces the texture of experience. The lines are not flaws but brushstrokes. I've learned to meet that reflection with gratitude rather than regret. After all, each wrinkle is proof that I've smiled, that I've worried, that I've lived long enough to feel deeply. When I look at myself now, I don't just see the passing of years. I see the gathering of them. And in that gathering is something beautiful, something whole. Yes, the body changes. The mirror shows that without mercy, but behind those eyes, the spark still flickers just as it did when I was young. I recognize it. I know it. That spark, my curiosity, my humor, my appetite for life, hasn't aged a day. So I nod to the man in the mirror. He nods back, weary perhaps, but still smiling. Between us, there's an understanding, a silent agreement that time has done its work but hasn't won. The reflection might be older, but the soul behind it still feels young, ready, somehow, for whatever comes next. When I look back now, I can still feel the warmth of those years, those wild, unrepeatable days when I was 25 and thought the world had been built just for me. After staring into the mirror and meeting the man I've become, it's almost impossible not to let my mind drift backward, like a tide returning to its source. I can see that young man clearly, the easy smile, the reckless confidence, the sense that life stretched endlessly ahead. Everything seemed permanent then. My face, my body, my energy, all untouched by time, all glowing with that peculiar arrogance that youth mistakes for immortality. Back then, I had a head of thick, wavy blonde hair that seemed to have a life of its own. I used to joke that it wasn't hair at all, but a living creature, mischievous and unruly, with no intention of ever obeying a comb. When I caught sight of myself in shop windows, I sometimes had to laugh. It shimmered and rippled like sunlight on water. I remember people teasing me about it. The girls especially said they got dizzy just looking at it. And maybe I believed, in my secret vanity, that the waves in my hair were some kind of reflection of my spirit, restless, untamed, full of motion. I remember waking up in the mornings back then with no ache, no stiffness, no hesitation. I'd spring out of bed ready to meet the day as though it were a challenge I was destined to win. My legs were strong, my breath easy, my heart untroubled. The future felt infinite, an open road unfurling under my feet. I couldn't imagine a world where my body might one day resist me, where my knees would creak in protest, or where I'd need to plan my movements before I made them. Youth doesn't see limits. It lives in a blur of possibility. And yet, even in those golden days, I think I took it all for granted. When you're young, you don't know you're young. You think this is just life, that this easy strength, this boundless curiosity, this certainty that the best is yet to come, will last forever. You don't yet understand that every heartbeat is a gift, that every step is part of a finite rhythm. There were evenings when I'd walk by the sea, the wind tossing my hair, and I'd feel something inside me expand, a wild joy, a belief that I could swallow the world whole. I didn't know it then, but that was life's first whisper of impermanence. The sunset glowed fiercely, but it always sank beneath the horizon. I never thought much of it. I just assumed there would be another, and there was, again and again, until suddenly the years had gathered quietly behind me, and I was the man in the mirror, looking back at the boy who once laughed at time. The emotional bridge between those two versions of myself feels fragile sometimes, like a thin thread stretched across decades. But it's also strong, woven from memory and gratitude. When I think of my younger self now, I don't feel envy. I feel affection. He didn't know then what I know now, that youth isn't a season that fades. It's a feeling that never quite leaves you. It lingers inside, soft and steady, even as the body grows older. Still, there's something bittersweet about remembering. I can see so clearly how I once was, and I can also see, with equal clarity, all that time has taken. The hair, the strength, the reckless confidence, they've all drifted away, leaving in their place a quieter kind of beauty. It's not the beauty of smooth skin or bright eyes, it's the beauty of having lived. If I could speak to that young man now, I'd tell him not to hurry. I'd tell him that the future he's racing toward will arrive soon enough, and that he should savor the sound of the wind, the laughter of friends, the feeling of sunlight on his face. I'd tell him that there's no need to cling to youth. It will always be a part of him, just as it remains a part of me. The memory of that time isn't something I mourn, it's something I carry. It reminds me that every age has its own kind of magic. The trick is to recognize it before it passes. Youth may have been my beginning, but it was never my best time. It was simply the prologue to everything else. And now, looking back from where I stand, I can see that the story only grew richer as the years unfolded. It's strange, really, how the body changes long before the mind agrees to follow. One day, you wake up and realize your knees sound like an old floorboard, your back grumbles when you stand too quickly, and you make little sighs while putting on your socks. Sounds you once swore you'd never make. Yet inside, the same mischievous, curious spirit still hums along unchanged. That's what makes aging such a paradox. The vessel grows old, but the passenger remains stubbornly young. When I first began to notice the decline, I fought it, as most people do. I'd tell myself that the stiffness was temporary, that I just needed more exercise or a new mattress. But the truth is, the body writes its own story, whether you approve or not. Wrinkles form where smiles have lingered. Skin thins where sunlight has touched it too long. Muscles lose their easy obedience. And yet, none of it feels unnatural to me now. It's just life reshaping itself, the same way a river changes course over time. I suppose I've made peace with it because I've learned that age truly belongs to the body, not to the mind. The mind, if you let it, can remain young forever. Mine still leaps at a joke, still gets excited by a sunrise, still stumbles upon new ideas and marvels like a child discovering the world for the first time. Even now, in my 90s, yes, a nonagenarian. That long and rather grand word, I don't feel old in the way that word implies. When people say 90, they picture frailty, forgetfulness, perhaps a soft-voiced surrender to life's end. But I'm none of those things. I'm full of mischief still, full of plans, full of wonder. Sometimes, when I say my age out loud, I almost laugh. 90-something. It sounds like an exaggeration, a number reserved for old stories, not real people. I remember being young and thinking that anyone over 60 must be ancient. Now I see that youth's view of age is all illusion. Inside, we don't age at all. We accumulate. Each version of ourselves still lives within us. The 25-year-old who thought he'd never tire. The 40-year-old who worked too hard. The 60-year-old who began to understand peace. They all coexist here, in this one being. My body may be slower, but my mind still dances between them. Of course, I'm not immune to the inconveniences of growing old. Some mornings, I creak and groan like an old ship setting sail. My fingers aren't as nimble, and my eyes, once sharp as hawks, now need help from my trusty glasses. I forget small things now and then, where I've put the pen, or what I came into the kitchen for. But I refuse to let these be defeats. They're simply reminders that I've been granted the privilege of time. Every ache and every wrinkle is a sign of endurance, not decay. There's humor in it too, if you choose to see it that way. I often find myself joking that if I ever do end up in an old age home, I'll buy one of those shiny walking frames and use it to chase the other residents down the corridor. Bring a bit of excitement into their lives, I say, though I suspect it might frighten them more than delight them. Humor is the best medicine for the absurdity of aging. It lightens what could otherwise feel heavy. What I've come to understand is that the real difference between feeling old and feeling alive lies in perspective. You can surrender to time and let it define you, or you can decide to meet it like an equal. I've chosen the latter. If you want to be old, you can be. If you choose to fight a little, to laugh, to learn, to keep moving, you can stretch your youth much further than the years would suggest. Sometimes, people ask me the secret to staying young at heart. I always tell them it's curiosity. Curiosity keeps the world from shrinking. When you stop being curious, life begins to close in around you. As long as I'm wondering about something, why the sky looks a different blue today, how a bird knows its path home, what story hides in a stranger's face, I'm alive in the truest sense. Yes, the body may tire, the steps may slow, but the spirit doesn't age. It still leans toward the light. It still finds joy in the simplest things. A good book, a laugh shared over tea, the sight of a rosebud opening, the sound of rain on the roof. The body might falter, but the mind can still soar. When I think about it, aging isn't a decline, it's a layering. Youth lies beneath everything still, not lost but absorbed. The spirit remembers, always. And perhaps that's the greatest gift of all. To reach an age where the body has softened, but the heart has not. To be wrinkled on the outside, yet eternally awake within. That, to me, is the real definition of staying young. There comes a point when you realize that if you can't laugh at yourself, life will find ways to do it for you. That's why humor has become one of my most loyal companions through the long journey of growing old. Without it, I think I'd have crumbled under the weight of all the small indignities that come with time, the misplaced spectacles, the stubborn zippers, the mysterious bruises that appear as if I've been fighting invisible enemies in my sleep. Laughter, I've found, is not just a distraction. It's defiance. It's my way of telling age. You can take the hair and the smooth skin, but you'll never take my mischief. I often joke that when I finally move into the old age home, I'll get myself one of those fancy walking frames, not the dull kind, but one with racing stripes and a bell, and chase little old ladies down the corridor. Some might call it inappropriate. I call it staying alive. Humor keeps the blood warm. It's remarkable how often people underestimate the power of laughter. They think it's frivolous, something that belongs to the young, but in truth, humor deepens with age. It becomes layered, sharper, wiser. I no longer laugh at what I used to. I laugh through it. There's a quiet strength in being able to chuckle at what might once have made me despair. When the body begins to falter and the world moves faster than you can, the ability to find amusement in the absurdity of it all becomes a kind of grace. Of course, I know not everyone finds it easy. Some people shrink under the shadow of old age. They begin to take themselves too seriously, as though solemnity might somehow earn them dignity. But I've always believed that dignity and laughter are not enemies, they're companions. A smile can carry more wisdom than a frown ever could. There are moments when I look at my reflection, or catch sight of my hands, these thin, freckled, time-worn hands, and I can't help but grin. They used to be strong, quick, capable of lifting heavy things and working tirelessly. Now they tremble sometimes when I pour tea, and I think, well, there's life reminding me to slow down. Instead of sighing, I smile. The tremor isn't weakness, it's rhythm. It's time dancing in my fingers. Even the limitations of age become easier to bear when met with humor. When I can't reach my toes to put on socks, I make a little joke to myself. Well, that's one way to save on laundry. When I forget a name, I laugh and say, my brain's just busy rearranging the furniture. It's not denial, it's acceptance, wrapped in kindness. Because the moment you can laugh at something, it loses its power to hurt you. There's a joy in being ridiculous too. I think it's healthy to keep a little silliness alive, even, or especially, when the world expects you to be solemn. Sometimes I hum to myself while I cook or make faces at the mirror just to see if the man looking back still knows how to be foolish. He always does. If I were to describe my relationship with age, I'd call it a friendly rivalry. Age tests me, and I tease it back. It gives me aches. I give it laughter. It slows me down. I find new ways to dance. There's no bitterness in the bargain, only a kind of amused respect. After all, time has done what it must, and so have I. Humor is my rebellion. It's my refusal to let the years turn me into something small or fearful. And as long as I can still laugh at myself, at life, at the sheer strangeness of existence, I know I'm not finished yet. The wrinkles may deepen, but the smile that lives beneath them never fades. As the years have rolled on, I've come to believe that the difference between growing old and feeling old lies entirely in the mind. The body, of course, has its own agenda. It stiffens, slows, forgets its flexibility. But the mind is a far more powerful and willful creature. It can choose to resist decline, to look beyond the frailties of flesh and see life as something still open, still waiting. If you want to be old, you can be, I often tell myself. But if you want to keep living, you must stay curious, stay stubborn, stay awake. It has unray. That's what mind over matter really means to me. It's not about pretending the body hasn't changed. It's about refusing to let the body dictate the boundaries of your joy. My knees may protest when I stand up, but I still stand. My back may complain when I bend, but I still reach for what's fallen. Age is not a cage unless you let it become one. Of course, I don't say this as someone untouched by discomfort. There are mornings when I move slowly, feeling every one of my 90-odd years pressing gently against my bones. It's on those days that the small tasks, buttoning a shirt, bending to tie a shoelace, become little tests of patience and endurance. I've learned to treat them as meditations rather than annoyances. If it takes me an extra minute to get my socks on, so what? That's a minute more of being alive, of being aware, of being here. I sometimes think that the body's decline is nature's way of teaching humility. When we're young, we take our strength for granted. We rush through life, expecting everything to bend to our will. But when your joints start whispering complaints, you learn to listen to your body, to others, to the rhythm of the world itself. You stop fighting time and begin moving with it. There's a grace in that surrender, though it's not a surrender of spirit, only of haste. People often mistake acceptance for resignation. I see it differently. Acceptance is peace. Resignation is defeat. To accept what is happening to you without bitterness is to live freely. You stop wasting energy on wishing you were someone or somewhere else. Instead, you look at what remains, and you realize that it's enough. More than enough. The truth is, the mind doesn't have to age the way the body does. It only grows old when it closes itself off, when it stops learning, stops laughing, stops seeking beauty. I make it a point to feed my mind daily, as carefully as I nourish my body. I read, I listen, I observe. I watch the world with the same fascination I had as a boy, lying on the grass, staring at clouds and wondering what they were made of. Wonder, I've found, is a kind of eternal youth. There's a quiet joy in this mental resilience. While others might lament the things they can no longer do, I find pleasure in the things I still can. I may not climb mountains anymore, but I can still marvel at their silhouettes at sunset. I may not run as I once did, but I can still walk, still feel the ground beneath my feet, still breathe the air of morning. I may not remember every detail of yesterday, but I remember what it means to love, to laugh, to hope, and those are the memories that matter most. So much of life's happiness depends on the stories we tell ourselves. If I tell myself I am frail, I become frail. If I tell myself I am finished, I begin to fade. But if I tell myself I am still learning, still growing, still discovering, then I am alive in ways that transcend the years. That's the secret, I think. To stay in conversation with life, not as a spectator but as a participant, right up to the final breath. Mind over matter, it isn't a slogan, it's a practice. It's what allows me to rise each day, aches and all, and greet the world with gratitude. The body may wrinkle, the bones may stiffen, but the mind, if tended with humor, curiosity, and love, remains boundless. It remains the young, daring soul that once looked in the mirror at 25 and thought, everything is possible. And, in a quiet, steadfast way, it still is. As I've grown older, I've learned that happiness is rarely found in grand moments. It hides instead in the quiet corners of life, in the glint of morning light through the curtains, in the soft hum of a kettle, in the laughter of a friend heard down the hall. When you slow down, you begin to see what was always there but overlooked, the small miracles that stitch each day together. In my younger years, I was always chasing something. Ambition, excitement, movement. I thought joy was waiting somewhere ahead, in the next adventure, the next success. But now, with time having gentled my pace, I realized that joy was never far away. It was in the simple rhythm of living, the taste of bread still warm from the oven, the chatter of birds outside the window, the feeling of rain on my face. You don't have to go searching for happiness. You only have to stop long enough to notice it. There's a kind of serenity that comes from appreciating small things. I find it in the sound of music drifting softly through the room, or in the way a candle flame dances when the window is slightly open. Even the familiar act of turning the pages of a book fills me with contentment. The world, I think, rewards those who pay attention. When I sit quietly and listen, I hear life speaking in whispers, the creak of the floorboards, the sigh of the wind, the steady rhythm of my own breathing. I often remind myself how fortunate I am to still have my senses, to see, to hear, to touch, to read. I've met people who can no longer do these things, and yet they smile, finding new ways to perceive the world. Their courage humbles me. So when I wake and the first thing I see is sunlight touching the wall, or when I hear the faint song of a blackbird outside, I say a silent thank you. Gratitude, I've found, transforms even the most ordinary moment into something precious. It's easy, especially in youth, to take such things for granted. We assume the world will always offer its beauty, that we'll always have time to admire it later. But later comes sooner than expected. Age teaches you to treasure what's in front of you, not what's beyond your reach. A cup of tea shared with someone you love, a walk through a garden, a warm blanket on a cool evening. These are not trivial comforts. They are life itself, distilled. People sometimes ask me if I'm ever bored, living more slowly now. I can only laugh. How could I be bored when the world keeps changing every hour? The sky never repeats itself. Every cloud is a new design. Even the leaves on the trees are artists, painting the seasons with infinite variety. There's no monotony in nature, only transformation. I think that's why I've always felt most alive outdoors. It reminds me that change isn't something to fear, but something to marvel at. And yet, joy isn't confined to nature or solitude. It's also found in the company of others. I count myself lucky to be surrounded by kind, lively people, friends, neighbors, family, each one adding color to my days. A conversation over tea, a shared laugh over a forgotten word, a story retold for the 10th time. These are the treasures of age. They remind me that connection, not youth, is what keeps the heart young. Of course, not every day shines. There are moments of loneliness, times when the world feels quieter than I'd like. But even then, I can find something good. A shaft of sunlight across the floor, the smell of rain on earth, the comfort of knowing I am still here, still part of this grand, fragile miracle called life. When I was young, I thought happiness was something to pursue. Now, I understand it's something to notice. It's in the act of seeing itself, in the open eyes, the listening heart, the small breath of wonder that comes when you realize that simply being alive is the most beautiful thing of all. If there is one place where I have always felt truly myself, it's among the trees. The woods have been both my refuge and my teacher, a living cathedral where the air hums with quiet wisdom. My life's path, quite literally, has led through forests, fields, and winding trails, and I suspect that's part of what's kept me young. There's something in nature that speaks to the spirit in ways no human voice can. When I was younger, I spent long hours outdoors, wandering without purpose. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just a feeling, a kind of belonging I couldn't name. The trees became my companions, their rustling leaves a language I slowly learned to understand. I could sense their patience, their calm endurance. Each one seemed to say, "Take your time. Life moves at its own pace." Those walks shaped me more than I realized at the time. Even now, when I step into the woods, I feel a kind of renewal, as though I've crossed a threshold back into youth. The air feels cleaner there, not just in the lungs but in the soul. The scent of pine and damp earth, the crunch of twigs underfoot, the soft green light filtering through the canopy. Each detail feels like a reminder that life, no matter how old it grows, is always beginning again somewhere. In the forest, decay and growth exist side by side, and that truth has always comforted me. I've often thought that trees hold the secret to graceful aging. They don't resist the seasons. They surrender to them. In spring, they open themselves to new beginnings. In autumn, they let go without regret. When winter comes, they stand quietly, conserving their strength, waiting for the light to return. There's a lesson in that for all of us. I sometimes imagine myself as one of them, weathered by storms, roots deep, branches scarred, but still reaching for the sky. There's a perpetual youth in the woods, a rhythm that never grows old. Birds return each year to rebuild their nests. Foxes raise their young in hidden dens. Moss creeps across fallen trunks, transforming death into new life. Everywhere you look, something is being born, even as something else fades. It's a constant dance, and in that dance I find reassurance. Perhaps that's why, even in my 90s, I don't feel ancient. Being surrounded by life that continually renews itself has taught me that aging is not the end of vitality, it's part of its cycle. When I walk through the trees, I often stop to listen. At first, it seems like silence, but then the sounds reveal themselves. The soft crack of a twig, the murmur of wind through leaves, the distant call of a bird. That symphony of small sounds feels like life whispering its continuity. It tells me, you are part of this, still and always. The thought fills me with peace. I've spent enough time outdoors to understand that the forest doesn't hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Nature has no need to rush or to prove anything. A seed takes its time becoming a tree. A stream carves its path, one patient inch at a time. Perhaps that's why I've always felt aligned with nature. It reflects the pace I've come to cherish in my own life. I don't need to chase after meaning anymore. It finds me, quietly, in moments like these. There were times in my life when I thought the woods were just a place to visit, somewhere to escape to when the world felt too heavy. But I see now that they were much more. They were a mirror, showing me how to live, to grow where you're planted, to bend but not break, to let the sunlight in when it comes, and to endure the shade when it doesn't. Nature has never lectured me, but it has taught me everything I needed to know. Sometimes when I sit beneath a tree, I imagine that all my younger selves are sitting there with me, the boy who first chased butterflies, the man who walked hand in hand with the woman he loved, the older self who returns again and again to breathe it all in. Together we listen to the rustle of leaves, feeling both the weight of years and the lightness of the present moment. The forest holds us all. Maybe that's why I feel so alive when I'm there. The woods don't ask me to be young or strong, they only ask me to be present. And in their quiet company, I find that youth is not something you lose, it's something that takes new forms. The trees may outlive me, but while I'm here, I share in their timelessness. Perhaps, in some small way, that's what has kept me perpetually young, not resisting time, but standing with it, rooted in life itself. The older I grow, the more convinced I am that life should never be lived inside a box. I don't mean only the boxes others build for us, the expectations, the social labels, the tidy plans that society loves so much, but also the ones we quietly build for ourselves. Over time, I've learned that nothing stifles the spirit more than the illusion of certainty. We crave order, yet the most meaningful moments in life always arrive unannounced, wild and untamed, like birds landing on an open palm. In my youth, I thought I needed to define myself. I wanted to be someone specific, to fit neatly into a category, to be recognized for something solid and measurable. I thought that was what life required: achievement, stability, a clear path from one success to the next. But living has taught me otherwise. The truth is, the richest parts of my life happened between the plans, those unplanned afternoons, the detours, the conversations that stretched long past midnight. Freedom doesn't come from structure. It comes from surrendering to the unpredictable. Age has a way of stripping away the unnecessary. You realize how many things you chased that never truly mattered. You stop asking, "What do I need to do?" and begin asking, "How do I want to feel?" That simple shift changes everything. I no longer feel compelled to follow rules about what someone my age should or shouldn't do. I've had enough years to see that those rules are mostly invented by people afraid of uncertainty. Some might call that rebellion. I call it living. I've met people who have spent their entire lives doing what they thought they should, only to wake one day realizing they never discovered what they could. I don't want that. I'd rather stumble through a life of my own making than march in perfect rhythm to someone else's drumbeat. Living without boxes means embracing the full, messy range of existence, the failures and the triumphs, the quiet mornings and the restless nights. It means not categorizing experiences as good or bad, but seeing all of them as essential notes in the same song. Life isn't tidy, and thank goodness for that. The beauty of it lies in its unpredictability. Even now, I find joy in doing things simply because they make me feel alive. I'll read a poem aloud to myself, or take a walk in the rain without an umbrella, or dance slowly to a tune from the 1,940 seconds that no one remembers anymore. There's no logic to it, no purpose other than joy, and that, to me, is reason enough. Living fully means giving yourself permission to be spontaneous again, even when the world thinks you should have outgrown such things. People often talk about finding meaning, as though meaning were a hidden object waiting to be unearthed. I think meaning is something we create each day, through the small choices we make, the kindnesses, the risks, the moments of attention we offer the world. To live without boxes is to let life surprise you, to let it unfold without insisting on what it must be. I've come to see life as a river rather than a road map. You can't control its flow, but you can learn to move with its current, to float when you must, and paddle when you can. Sometimes it carries you somewhere unexpected, somewhere even better than what you planned. That's the freedom I've found in my later years. To live gently, openly, without definitions, without fear of being uncontained. Because life, after all, was never meant to be tidy. It was meant to be vast. It's easy, I think, to slip quietly from living into merely existing. The difference between the two can be subtle at first. So subtle you don't even notice it happening. You start going through the motions, waking up, eating, doing what needs to be done, filling the hours until night falls again. Days blur together. You're alive, yes, but not awake. That, to me, is one of the saddest fates a person can face. Not death itself, but the slow drift into a life unlit by curiosity or joy. There were moments, even in my younger years, when I caught myself teetering on that edge, working too hard, worrying too much, moving too fast to feel anything deeply. Back then, I thought it was ambition. Now I see it for what it was: distraction. We often confuse busyness with purpose. but the two are not the same. One fills time, the other fills the soul. To live well, you must always make space for wonder, for thought, for stillness. When I look around, I sometimes see people, young and old alike, who seem to have forgotten how to live. They rush from task to task, scrolling through their days as though life was something to be endured, not embraced. They forget to notice the morning light, to listen when someone laughs, to pause long enough to feel the breeze on their face. It breaks my heart a little, because I know how quickly time passes, how suddenly the days we took for granted turn into memories we ache to relive. If there's one thing age teaches, it's that existence alone is not enough. We were made to feel, to dream, to love, to be moved. To merely exist is to betray that purpose. Living is about engaging with the world, with its beauty, its chaos, its endless complexity. It's about letting yourself be touched by things, even when they hurt, especially when they hurt. Pain, too, is proof of life. When people tell me they feel too old to live fully, I remind them that aliveness has nothing to do with age. You can be 20 and lifeless, or 90 and burning with vitality. It's all in how you see the world. I've always believed that you don't grow old when you stop moving. You grow old when you stop feeling. So, I fight every day to stay alive in spirit. I look for something beautiful, something new, something that stirs me. It could be as simple as the way light falls on the wall, or a stranger's kindness, or a bird singing just outside my window. These are small things, perhaps, but together they form the pulse of life. Existing asks nothing of you. Living asks everything, and gives it back tenfold. That's the great secret I've learned. To live is to keep saying yes to the world, again and again, no matter how many years you've seen or how many wrinkles mark your hands. Because the moment you stop saying yes, you stop being truly here. And I, for one, am not ready to stop just yet. There's a Latin phrase I've always liked, carpe diem, seize the day. It's one of those sayings that we hear so often that it almost loses its weight. But the older I get, the more I realize how urgent, how tender those two words really are. When you've lived long enough to see the years fold behind you like pages in a book, you begin to understand that each day is a small and precious chapter of its own. You stop waiting for the right time, because you finally see that the right time is always now. To seize the day isn't about reckless adventure or filling every moment with activity. It's about presence, being truly alive to what is happening, here and now, without longing for what was or worrying about what might come. Every morning I wake, I try to greet the day as though it were a guest who's knocked on my door unexpectedly. Some days arrive gently, others arrive storming in, but each one deserves my attention, my gratitude. There was a time when I used to plan life as though I could outsmart time itself. I made lists, built routines, postponed joy for a tomorrow that always seemed more practical. But as the years passed, I began to see how fragile plans are, how easily life slips between the fingers. Now, I think less about how much I can do, and more about how deeply I can experience what I do. Carpe diem, to me, means finding delight in the ordinary. It's sitting quietly with a book and letting a single line of poetry sink in until it stirs something in your chest. It's taking a walk, not to get somewhere, but simply to feel the air move around you. It's laughing when the teapot whistles too loudly, or when you spill a bit of jam and realize it doesn't matter at all. To seize the day isn't about controlling it. It's about surrendering to it, about saying yes to the moments that arrive, no matter how small. Sometimes I think of it as a kind of art form, the art of being awake to life. Like any art, it takes practice. It requires patience, attention, and love. Some days I forget, and I let the hours drift by unnoticed. But then, something always calls me back. A song, a memory, a bird's call, or simply the awareness of breathing. And I remind myself, this moment is the only one that truly exists. It deserves to be lived. People often imagine that carpe diem belongs to the young, to those with energy to spare and time to burn. But I think it belongs even more to those of us who've learned how quickly days vanish. To live in the present, to seize each sunrise with wonder and each sunset with peace, that is not youthful recklessness. It's wisdom. It's gratitude in motion. So I try, every day, to seize the day, not by holding it tightly, but by opening myself to it, by noticing, by laughing, by loving, by being alive. Because the truth is, there's no guarantee that tomorrow will come. But this day, right here, right now, is mine. And that is enough. Even now, in my 90s, I still believe in dreams. Not the kind that come in sleep, but the waking ones, the longings, the what-ifs, the gentle sparks that keep us leaning forward instead of looking back. Some people think that dreams belong only to the young, that ambition and imagination fade with time. I couldn't disagree more. Dreams are the heartbeat of the soul. When they stop, something inside us quietly begins to fade. I often think of that old song from South Pacific. If you don't have a dream, how can a dream come true? It's simple, almost childlike, but it holds a truth I've lived by. We must always have something to reach for, no matter how small. A place we want to see, a project we want to finish, a kindness we want to offer. Dreams don't have to be grand. They can be as modest as learning something new, planting a tree, or writing a letter to someone you've lost touch with. The point is not the size of the dream, but the spirit behind it, the willingness to believe that there is still more life to live. For me, enthusiasm has always been the fuel that keeps those dreams alive. Without enthusiasm, life becomes mechanical. You wake, you eat, you go through the day, but you don't glow. Enthusiasm gives life its brightness, its warmth. It's what makes your eyes light up when you talk about something you love, what makes you laugh at an idea that suddenly feels possible. I've seen people achieve great things not because they were clever or lucky, but because they were enthusiastic. They threw themselves into life wholeheartedly, without hesitation. And isn't that the only way to truly live? Of course, enthusiasm changes shape over time. When I was young, it was wild and impulsive. I wanted everything at once, the adventure, the success, the applause. Now it's gentler but steadier, more like a flame than a spark. I don't chase my dreams the way I once did. I walk toward them, patiently, enjoying the journey as much as the goal. There's a sweetness in that pace. It lets me savor the small victories along the way. I keep a bucket list, though I don't treat it like a list of unfinished business. To me, it's more of a promise to keep saying yes to life. Some items are simple. Visit the sea again, learn a new song on the piano, plant daffodils in spring. Others are less tangible. Forgive someone, let go of something, laugh until my ribs ache. Every time I cross something off, I add something new. The list never ends, and I don't want it to. It's a reminder that there's always more to discover, more to feel, more to give. And I must admit, even at my age, vanity still sneaks in with a sense of humor. When I wear my thick round reading glasses, my Snoopy glasses, as I call them, I can't help but laugh at myself in the mirror. They make me look like an old cartoon dog, but they also make me see the world clearly, which seems a fair trade. Age teaches you to hold your dignity lightly, to laugh at your quirks, to accept your changes, and to keep finding joy in them. I think the greatest mistake people make about aging is assuming it's an ending. It isn't. It's another chapter, one where the dreams don't stop. They simply grow wiser. They become less about becoming someone and more about being someone. They're dreams of peace, of gratitude, of leaving behind a little more light than you found. As long as I still have dreams, I know I'm alive. As long as I still feel that gentle pull towards something new, I know the spirit hasn't dulled. And if I can wake each morning with even a small spark of enthusiasm, enough to wonder what the day might bring, then I have everything I need. Because the truth is, life is never finished with us until we are finished with life. And I, thank heavens, am not done dreaming yet. If there's a secret to a good life, and I suppose people expect me to have learned one by now, it's not hidden in any grand philosophy or rule book. It's much simpler, quieter, and closer than we imagine. A good life, I've come to believe, isn't measured by what you've owned or achieved, but by how deeply you've lived, how honestly you've loved, and how fully you've appreciated the ordinary miracles that fill each day. For most of my years, I thought happiness was something to pursue. It always seemed just over the next hill, a dream job, a perfect love, a bigger house, a new adventure. And while there's nothing wrong with wanting those things, I see now that happiness was never waiting ahead. It was walking beside me all along, disguised as everyday life. The laughter of a friend, the warmth of sunlight on my face, the quiet satisfaction of finishing a task well. Those were the treasures, though I didn't always notice them at the time. Now, looking back, the pattern is clear. The good life isn't about escaping difficulty. It's about meeting it with grace. It's about learning that peace isn't the absence of storms, but the ability to dance in the rain. I've had my share of troubles, my share of loss, but even those moments shaped the person I became. If I could go back, I wouldn't wish them away. They gave texture to joy, depth to gratitude. You can't truly appreciate light until you've known darkness, and you can't know strength until you've been asked to endure. People often ask me for advice, as though long life automatically grants wisdom. I always hesitate, because what worked for me may not work for another. But if I had to offer something, it would be this. Keep your heart open. Stay curious. Be kind. Forgive quickly, laugh often, and never let pride keep you from saying thank you or I love you. And, perhaps most importantly, cultivate gratitude. Gratitude turns even an ordinary day into something sacred. The good life as I've lived it has nothing to do with perfection. It's about wholeness, the acceptance of life in all its contradictions. Joy and sorrow, gain and loss, beauty and decay, all of them belong. When you stop fighting the natural rhythm of things, life becomes gentler, easier to love. Now, when I look back over the long road I've walked, I see not a perfect story but a full one, rich with mistakes, laughter, adventure, and stillness. And perhaps that's what makes it good. It's been mine. Lived honestly, felt deeply, shared generously. I've loved, I've learned, I've kept my sense of wonder. That, to me, is the only secret worth knowing. A good life isn't something you find at the end, it's something you build in the moments in between. If I could leave behind one final thought, one closing line to all these reflections, it would be this. Life is meant to be celebrated, not in grand gestures or noisy triumphs, but in quiet gratitude, in the awareness of simply being here, of being part of something vast and miraculous. I've come to see that every day, no matter how ordinary or imperfect, offers a reason to rejoice. It's easy, of course, to forget that. The world often teaches us to measure life in milestones, births, careers, marriages, accomplishments. Yet the real essence of living is found in the spaces between them. It's in the mornings when the air smells of rain, in the laughter that erupts for no reason, in the gentle weight of a hand resting in yours. Those moments are the heartbeat of existence, the quiet celebrations that make a life worth living. As I sit here, in the twilight of my years, I don't mourn the passage of time. I celebrate it. Every wrinkle is a memory. Every scar is proof of survival. Every line on my face is a chapter written by joy, loss, and endurance. I wouldn't trade them for anything. Time has taken much from me, yes, but it has also given me wisdom, patience, and the understanding that beauty is not something we outgrow, it's something we grow into. I often wonder what the world would feel like if more of us lived as though life were a celebration instead of a burden. Imagine it, a world where we smiled more freely, where laughter was as common as breathing, where gratitude came as naturally as thought. We'd all be gentler with one another, more forgiving, more alive. Even now, I choose to celebrate, to smile at the morning sun, to thank the day for its light, to look around and see the miracle in every living thing. I celebrate that I can still hear music, that I can still laugh at my own clumsiness, that I can still feel love and wonder and hope, because that, in the end, is what life asks of us, to live it, to go for it while we're still here, while breath still fills our lungs and laughter still finds its way out. There's enough time to be silent when we're gone, but while we're here, while the world is still full of light and sound and possibility, we must choose to be alive. So I say it, not as advice, but as a blessing. Go for life. Celebrate it, every messy, beautiful, fleeting moment of it, because the greatest gift we are ever given is the chance to be here at all.